Wonderful to have Erin Yoshi on
Okay.
Afronauts. This is our first video streaming podcast, and looking forward to talking to you and finding out what you've been up to. It's been, like I said, like you said, it's been like 5 years since we've actually talked like this. And you're a mom now, right?
I am. I mean, lots have changed. Yes, I'm a new mom. You know, I've joined the club. I've been officially jumped into the hood, the parenthood, you know, the tough one.
Yes,
like
it
most
is.
hoods are, but it's a tough one, man. It is. Yeah, and I'm a new mom. She's amazing. I have a daughter, you know, challenges me every day. So it's been an amazing journey.
And how old is she now?
And yeah, she is about to turn 1 year. So
Okay.
she's
Wow. Yeah.
11
So
months.
you're.
So yeah, I'm in the thick of it, you know. It's
Well, you're
like
not in the thick of it. You're not in the thick of it yet.
okay,
You're in the.
okay.
This is the pro. This is like, what do you say, that stage? You haven't real. You're getting jumped into the hood right now. Like, this is the stage that will make you official or not, right? You make it through this, then you have a chance.
Yeah, exactly. This is still initiation, you know. Like, can I make it or not?
It
Yeah,
really is. Um, that's
yeah.
cool
It
though.
definitely
11
feels
months.
like
Huh?
that. So it's amazing. You know, I feel very lucky and blessed during this time period because it's kind of like an extended maternity leave that I
Right.
get to spend time with my daughter, which is really just amazing and special and beautiful. But yeah, so lots has changed. I'm actually here in Los Angeles now. Too. I've moved a couple times since we spoke last.
Okay.
I spent a couple years down in Ecuador. Moved down to Ecuador for a while. I was there for about 2 years and really loved it. And honestly, like probably would have stayed, but I ended up coming back to LA. Just my family, you know, parents getting older, just need to be closer. So now I'm here in LA, and yeah, just growing my family, you know, laying some roots and stuff. But
Right. I mean, you were always sort of nomadic following your career. You can tell, like you've done work in Australia, the Philippines, a lot in South America, across the U.S., Britain. So you've always been sort of nomadic, and I guess you got like a bug for traveling early. You just like to see different cultures. And I mean, I know a lot of your work is socially justice based, but I mean, just traveling in general, is that something that's always been something you liked?
yeah,
And
you know, I loved it. I got the bug kind of early on. You know, when I was young, my mom used to live in Detroit, so I used to fly like by myself to see her. And so I think at a young age, I was
Detroit.
like yeah, she lives in Detroit. So I used to go meet her like in different cities, like, you know, it's like the time I would spend with her as a kid. So I got kind of comfortable flying at a young age, I think. And then
Okay.
really like around college I like used my student loan and straight like bought plane tickets and would go and take off and so yeah, I started traveling a lot probably around that age, and I realized that I would learn more like in a month's time being gone than I did maybe like the whole school year. And so I just always felt like I had this like you get like this itch, like this little inkling, like I need to be out of the States. I need to go see something different. It just gives you a whole new perspective, and it's
Yeah,
you know a
it
different
really
way of life.
does. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I
it really does.
appreciate
It
it.
really does. I think more people should travel and not just go see the touristy stuff, but travel and see what different cultures are like, how different ways that people live. Because it really does make a difference in your worldview when you travel. So I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, for me too, I've been really trying to do more work around environmental justice. And
Okay.
so by moving down to Ecuador, it was like an amazing experience because I lived in the Andes. I would spend time in the Amazon or in this area really close to actually like the center, right up by the equator, but the center of the world called there's a couple different regions there, but I would go to one that's pretty close to there called Mindo, and it's a beautiful kind of rainforest region, and it's just amazing that the cloud forests are there, and just to see and feel and smell and taste and touch, biodiversity is there's really nothing like it, to be enveloped by nature. I think it's just really special. So I would kind of like spend a lot of time very intentionally in some of the places that I feel like, it's just like you can't see that in LA. You can't see that and feel it here in the States in the same way, So I just feel like it's been really special to be able to spend time
there. That's awesome. And so having your daughter, your traveling has been kind of curtailed a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then also, like you said, the circumstances that we're in now, traveling's kind of scaled back. There's not really much travel going on right now, unless it's essential.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I feel like I was already slightly on lockdown, so it's like a continuation of it, I guess, in some ways. And it's like I work from home anyway, so it wasn't a major shift for me, so I felt very lucky, except my whole industry has completely shifted. So that's been really interesting. But yeah.
So what were you doing from home before the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, I mean, I do like all types of things, various things. So, I am an artist and paint murals and paint canvases, and most of my stuff is very fine art or like kind of street art based. I do kind of a combination of a lot of community-based projects as well. And so over the last couple of years, I've kind of shifted. I realized that because I was pregnant, I had to come up with different means of resources for myself because I have to work, and I can't be like on ladders and scaffolding, So I think that was a huge eye opener, and I knew it was kind of coming as I knew I was going to try and get pregnant. So I kind of shifted my business a little bit to do more like supporting other artists. So I do like kind of a combination of I coach artists, I help artists build like their infrastructure and some of their like business skills. And then on top of it, also like build curriculum to support some of their projects, or in other ways kind of come in to help support their projects. So I've been doing that in addition to my own fine art work. And that combination has kind of built this whole new avenue of like my development. So like right now I'm working on a wellness toolkit, which has just been a really amazing journey because I'm working with this amazing community organizer. His name is Leon Ford. They actually just dropped a movie about him, a beautiful documentary about his journey. And when he was 19 years old, he was shot by the police in Philly. And he ended up, being paralyzed from it from the waist down. And so he's become like, he's transformed his life into being an amazing like community organizer, spokesperson, healer, youth mentor. He's done TED Talks. He won like an Obama award for volunteer organizing, like just an amazing, amazing young man. And he's young, he's amazing. So together we kind of co-wrote this healing manuscript that's going to drop in about 2 weeks. And so I'm really excited about that. I think for both of us, it was a lot of reflection about what are the things that we've done over the years to heal ourselves and to kind of like bring calm to our lives. Because I think the thing that we really both related to was that, like, for POC, sometimes self-care feels like totally not attainable, or just seems like I don't know, like it's a very it's something that I feel like it doesn't come up that often. And unless you're really connected to like older cultures, you know, like a lot of our historic cultures really do a lot of self-care and healing.
Right.
It's much more in our practices. But I feel like in a lot of like modern urban environments in the States, it's just not something that people feel like is accessible. And so I think what was really important for us was that because we surrounded ourselves over the years with amazing healers and amazing folks that do incorporate self-care into their practice.
Right.
I think it's really nice to kind of share that journey, because I think the more that you seek it, the more that you find it. And a lot of times growing up, like, you know, I grew up here in LA, my family's from East LA. I think that for both of us, it was like when you grow up kind of in these urban, rougher environments, sometimes you feel that like, you know, like the world is crazy. And so you're just like struggling to survive. And how do you shift to thriving? And so I think that was like a big push for both of our journeys in time. Like, you know, I was really lucky because I could kind of go back and forth. Like my mom lived in Pasadena, which is a nicer neighborhood. My pops lives in East LA. And so I kind of got to see both spaces, but at the same time, like it definitely shaped who I am today, you know? And so I really feel like for him too, when we kind of sat down and talked about our journeys and, you know, why we've incorporated these different practices into our life, that like, these are kind of things that we have found that have helped us. And, you know, and he's just a really amazing, powerful example. So it's just been a nice journey. It's been a really good reminder. I think it like totally has pushed me to reincorporate more stuff back into my life, because of being a new mom, like all you do is focus on your baby and, you know, like you like totally are out the picture. Like, you know, you have no time for nothing. So I
It's
think it's
just
really
begun,
nice.
Erin. It's just begun. Wait till you're watching like Arthur by yourself when the kids are asleep or gone. Like, you know, why am I watching Arthur? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, why am I, you know, watching kids shows and the kids aren't even around? When you,
yeah, you're like, why is this kid's music toy playing? Like, why? Like, I need.
No, like when you actively are like doing it.
Like they need to invent kids toys with better music. Okay, whoever's doing
that is
that,
true.
They're gonna do.
Well,
they would do
you know,
really
they
well.
used to have something like, I don't know, that's not on anymore. But when my kids were like 4 and like 4 and 6 or whatever, or new grades, like around that, they had like the electric company came back, and they had it was the best because it was like hip hop electric company. Like they literally, I think they had like LL Cool J writing and like Biz Markie writing, and like so it wasn't them on the show, it was kids. Yeah, it was so awesome, and I was like, I'm into this. Like, hey, I'm watching the
they need to put that like in the toy. You know what I mean? So it's like the one that's always playing in the background of your house. Like that needs to have better music. But yeah, no, there's definitely like shout outs to Alphabet Rockers. Yeah, like there are still, you know, folks doing stuff for kids. But yeah, I just feel like I listen to a lot of kid music now.
But no, you definitely unpacked a lot of stuff there. So like your work at home is like it's hasn't really. I mean, I guess you would say your location kind of shifted, but your work has like always been rooted in community organizing and social justice and stuff like that. So when you took this journey of pregnancy and to become a mom, like you kind of just shifted your locale, your focus of the area that you're working in, and now you're actually, instead of helping people by displaying your art, you're actually helping them hone their skills and bring their stories to light, right?
Totally, like build out their art practice. Like I've been doing workshops, I've spoken at conferences, and really like taught a lot of the skills that I learned along the way, like foundation, you know, how to get foundation support, how to write grants, how to go for sponsorship, how to pitch yourself, how to,
which is something that's really important.
Yeah, and you know, I feel like I've been really lucky along the way that I got to learn from amazing mentors, and so I feel like it's not mine to hold on to. So, you know, I've always shared it, but I've just done.
That's a very unique perspective. Yeah. That's a very unique perspective, though. I want to applaud you for that, because a lot of people don't do it for free. They're just like, oh, this is going to cost you if you want to know this. Or like they'll hold it close to the vest and say, hey, if you got to do something for me if you want me to teach you that. But I can personally attest to you, when I sat down with you and interviewed the first time, like you were like, hey, are you going for grants? And like, hey, this is what you might want to do and everything like that. Because Afronauts is only a subsidiary of our larger nonprofit, EdFood Foundation. Shout out to EdFood Foundation Conservancy Corp. We are now EcoSoc, United Nations recognized nonprofit. But but you have always been super helpful in that way, and that's a unique trait to have in this day and time. It's very appreciative, so I definitely want to applaud you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm glad. I hope it helps. But yeah, I over the years I used to like consult with nonprofits, and I would just meet with them and just share like knowledge. Like, hey, you can come pick my brain. Buy me a coffee. Let's just talk, and I'll tell you what I know. And I would like review people's grants just to help them, like, hey, this is what I would do. And I would tell them like, hey, I'm just going to give you the straight out, honest, brutal, don't take it personal thing, but you want me to give you the real, then I'll give you the real. So I think that I kind of shifted to start doing some of that for income, but at the same time, like I still mentor people all the time, and I still teach it in different ways, and allow people to always like, hey, contact me, whatever, like I'm down to share that sort of knowledge. So I've started to put some of that down on paper and to help people, which I think has been also helpful for me. It's like you learn so much more when you actually are teaching it too. It just made me reflect and like really compile everything together, all the years of like mess ups that I did, that it's like that. I think that's the most powerful thing about like learning, reading and stuff. It's like learn from the mistakes of others, so you don't have to do the same thing. You get like the step up, so I think that was a big thing. And also kind of in the wellness spirit, like thinking about living in abundance, like what does that really look like, and how do we keep doing that within community with folks? So like that's why to me it's really big to share that sort of knowledge, because I feel like by you stepping up in grants and getting more money or getting more access for your organizations, like like that just helps community in general. So like by sharing this with other artists, like I don't feel a competition about that. I feel like it's really important, because the better they do, the more our industry thrives, the more we can build together. And I feel like it never is like a comeback one-to-one sort of scenario. You just don't know how it will have ripple effects. But I just try not to think about that so much. I think for me it's more about like, cool, it was given to me, so I should pass it on.
So you said a few things that were super interesting. As a indigenous nonprofit person that works in that area, and who I pride myself on being very spiritual and in tune with my inner being. We've done ceremony and like and sweat lodge over in different countries and stuff like that. And you mentioned earlier, you were saying like POC, people of color, like typically we don't view self-care as as maybe our ancestors did. You know what I mean? It is super important, especially in this day and time. It helps you to be resilient when you have a ritual or you have a system or practice that can give you some relief from the day-to-day external stressors, right? So what was some of the things that you and I'm sorry, was it Leonard?
Leon
discussed or did, or ways in which that you went about self-care or teaching people self-care?
Yeah, so we kind of laid out like the different sections that have helped us along the way. So journaling is a really big portion of it. So it's to incorporate a regular practice of journaling, movement, activities, whatever that looks like to you, just something every day is really powerful. Even if you can only get 5 minutes in, 5 minutes is better than nothing. And you'll build your way up to having it be more time the more you do it. So movement is really big, drinking water, like people make fun of me, but like this is my water. I try and drink 2 of these a day, so like, and I find this is really helpful because I'll drink it and then it's like, if if I'm only partway through the day and I'm like here, I'm like, oh man, I got to drink a lot more, you know, and I'll just start guzzling water. So things that are really simple like that everybody has access to. Reading, we put together a recommended reading list of books that have just shaped both of us throughout the years. Let's see, what else is there? Sleep, which is something that is a struggle right now. But I usually am really good at it. But yeah, you know, I think they're just things like that that are very simple that everybody kind of knows is the basics of what you do to take care of yourself. But it's just a really good reminder that if you incorporate a little bit of all of it into your life, like it's transformative. So that was kind of our goal overall, was to really think about the ways in which, you know, that could kind of help. So we actually put in things like meditation and opened up things about, you know, like in movement, whether that be like yoga, or it could just be stretching, or it can be hiking, or whatever people have access to be able to do. I think that that is really open to, and it's really about enjoying it. And we also
Right,
put a calendar in there because, oh, go ahead.
No, I said, yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of times people think it's really hard to do self-care, and they're like, oh, yoga, mindfulness, like, oh, all these things. But like, I mean, mindfulness is basically just paying attention to what you're doing, right? And yoga, like essentially the true definition of yoga is breathing, right? So yoga is, you're always doing yoga, whether you're conscious of it or not. So, and meditation, I mean, we all know, like, there's times when you zone out, and that's you're in a meditative state. So it's really not that hard. And like you said, if you try like 5 minutes
totally
to dedicate towards that self, then it's really helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, is that like there are things that are accessible to all. And you know, I think that we've been really lucky. Like my community, I have a lot of amazing healers and people who care amazing, you know, do a lot of amazing self-care that I learn from all the time. But I know growing up, like that was not something that was reflected by people that were surrounding me. So it was really a journey to be able to start building in communities that do that. And so, you know, it's just been an ongoing practice that I've been trying to evolve within myself. And it's always evolving. You know, there are times where I'm like, I have like stacks of journals, and then there are times where I'm like not journaling at all. And then there are times where I'm like trying to meditate every day, and other times where it's like happening every once in a while. And so I think,
but that's so normal though. Like people, like I said, people think like, I mean, that everything is cycles, right? The seasons, right, on Earth, and there's seasons within yourself. So there are going to be times where you're going to do more, and there's going to be times when you're going to do less. So I think the important thing is to not beat ourselves up over like, oh my God, I didn't do this, and I'm so bad.
Totally.
Like, just go with the flow and ride the wave, and you know, find the place to get back in. You know.
Yeah, and like part of it too, like we put together this like little calendar, like a weekly calendar, and it's like just as important as you would put in time for like a meeting or like even this. Like it's just as important as putting in time for like, hey, I'm gonna read a little tonight, or I'm gonna meditate tonight, or I'm gonna do some movement activities. You know, like prioritizing to care for ourselves so that we're not depleted and we could actually give back and feel that we're giving our full selves, I think is just a huge thing. And it, you know, it's just taken me a long time to come to that. But I feel like as you get older and your body starts to hurt more, you're like, I need to take better care of this, you know? So yeah, I think it's a journey, and definitely I agree with you. Like we have to just be kind to ourselves.
Yes, it's a lot of times we're the most difficult and meanest is to ourselves, right? And it's like, why is that? You should love yourself and know that, like, hey, you came here for a reason. You have the faculties and the abilities and the vehicle to do what you need to do. So sometimes you need to just listen to it. You know?
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. Like part of our journaling activities were like doing affirmations for yourself, and also like, you know, thinking of things that like how to be kind to ourselves in ways that we don't even realize. Like sometimes I have conversations a lot where like I feel like along the way, I've had to update I call it my residual self-image, like what I see of myself. When I think of myself, what do I see? And sometimes along the way, you have to let go of the old visions of yourself, because like at one point, I might have been like way younger and totally partying and like going out and having fun. And that image of self, like though that is in there and will come out on the rare occasion, it's like that is not totally me anymore. So I have to update to the new me and kind of re-evolve so that we can feel more of our truer selves, and also like appreciate and really are kind to ourselves in that journey. So I feel like sometimes, like we get stuck in the old vision of ourselves, and we should update it along the way to be like, yeah, I'm proud of me. I'm doing this and that. And, like I'm not this that I was.
Well, change is constant in the universe. So people who don't evolve tend to become extinct. So you have to always realize that, you're going to have to evolve, and you see that. I mean, it's really simple. You can see evolution within yourself from month to month, like even with small little things.
Totally.
So it's really important for people to realize, like, yeah, in this situation that we're in right now with the coronavirus, is a perfect example of us having to evolve. Like people are like, oh,
Totally.
the new normal, right? Well, there was a new normal before. 9/11 brought a new normal, right? Before 9/11, things were totally different, but we could never see, like when you look at or think about it, you're like, man, nah, it'll never be like it was before 9/11 again. That changed us, and we had to evolve. And this is something else that we're going to have to evolve from. And it doesn't have to be negative. I mean, obviously, transitions are sometimes tumultuous, but like you said, with that self-care, with that resiliency, you can get through it, and you can definitely make the most positive evolution for yourself possible.
Yeah. I think a big thing for me right now too is like trying to take opportunities to learn and just recognize that like this is a new moment. So I need to go through a learning process of like, what do I need to figure out to make that shift? Or what do I need to do to evolve to be, to be able to I don't know, I want to say like be current, but like to be able to function in this new environment successfully, because I think that what I've been noticing, I've been having a lot of conversations with other artists about like how our industries are going to shift, like from everywhere from musicians to DJs to, to visual artists, like what is it now going to look like for us? And I think it's really important to have those conversations for our industries, and also just like in general, because I mean, I've been like totally having wild thoughts out the box, or just like, how do we think beyond what is to kind of shift? And I think the thing that I keep coming back to is like, I need to learn more, like I had to do like much more homework. I need to take more trainings. I need to like figure out new things, because in some ways too, like I can be analog, like, I don't have a spinny nice background, but I should, and I'm a visual artist. I have a lot of imagery and video, so there are things like that where I feel like I do want to be kind to myself, but I also want to challenge myself to evolve. And so I think in times like this, it's really important to just be open to learning. And so that's what I've been trying to do, I'm taking this awesome workshop, which I highly recommend, with this group called Movement Generations. They're doing like a 4-piece series on ecology and the environment and what it's going to take to shift it. And one of the really powerful things that they said, and I think a lot of us feel right now, was like that, inequity will continue to flow through the deep grooves of like injustice. And like we keep seeing how that's happening right now, like people who have been down and out continue to be down and out, and they're affected the first and most in times like this. And so how do we shift those actual paradigms right now to be able to come out of this with hope, to be able to come out of it on like, a little bit more ahead, but even just like with more equality, in general. And so I think that for me, I've been trying to think about concepts like that, so like, how do we go back and learn old wisdom that we have lost? How do we think about protecting biodiversity and the planet. You know, like if the planet's sick, we're gonna be sick. Like it just makes sense. You know, it is our home. It's alive. If it's sick, we're sick. So if we don't heal it, we're not gonna be healed. So you know, I think kind of like things like that I've been thinking about as well. And yeah, and just like how we care for each other. You know, what does it look like to build community apart together? And you know, and just healing. I think that's another thing. It's like, how do we inspire hope? How do we heal together as visual artists or artists? Like part of what we bring is hope, but how do you provide hope when you're feeling down and out? You know, like how do you provide hope when you're feeling hopeless? And so for me, I think that's why I went back to the self-care. Like I need to care for myself right now, so I'm in a better state to be able to provide hope moving forward.
So I definitely want to touch on what how do you provide hope when you're feeling down? I do want to touch on that. But I also want to touch on what you just said about, you know, inequality will seep down. You know, but you also mentioned living with abundance earlier. You mentioned living with abundance, right? And it's very interesting that you mentioned that you use that term, because I always feel like, hey, actually, you know what? We do have abundance on the planet. Like, you know what I mean? There is no shortage. America throws away like 40% of its food. Like we throw away enough food to feed the world, actually. You know what I mean? So we have abundance, right? And you can see like at a time like this where you have farmers who are like having to throw away milk and kill chickens and things like that. That we actually do have the abundance. It's just we don't have the will to share, right? If you look at other countries, their stimulus packages paid people monthly, whereas ours is like a one-time. And that's where the inequality comes in, right? Because of our unwillingness to share, we cause people to suffer. And I think that's the evolution that we really need to like make sure gets going, that we change and get better at, because that's what's going to help us all get through whatever comes next in any phase, right? Because the earth, it was funny, I was in the store the other day and the guy was like, man, the earth is done. Like the earth is dying, or the earth is done, or something. He said like that the world's going to end or something. I said, no, the earth is not going to end. People are going to end. People are going to end. The earth will just like redo itself and be here, at least until the sun goes like red giant or whatever. But the earth will still be here. It's the people that'll be dead. And so that's what we really need to like think about. Like even with all this climate change and the arguing back and forth about like, oh, we don't need, you can argue all you want. Like the earth will still be here. We will not. So it's pretty interesting.
We've seen so many species go extinct. Like, why would we be above that in any way? And we're totally the ones that are actually killing the earth or harming it. So it would make sense that it would need to get rid of us, you know, like until we can live in more harmony with it. You know, but I think that that's the big thing. It's just like losing that connection. I've been gardening a lot recently. I started my garden.
So have I. Like you're like the fifth person. Like I've been talking to people and everything, and everyone's like, oh, what are you doing? Like, yeah, I've been gardening. Oh, I've been gardening too. Like everyone's gardening like right now. If you have actually even like some friends and family who are living in apartments, they're like, yeah, we have some tomato plants in the window. We have a little like aquaponics thing going in the apartment. You know, everyone's gardening.
Totally, because we realize that our food supply is at jeopardy in some ways. We do have surplus, but the way that it's transported, the way that it's controlled is not within our power. So like we need to be able to grow our own food locally, you know, and it makes sense if people do have access to outdoor space to grow, like we need to be doing it. And, you know, like I have this book that I like called Food, Not Lawns. And it's just been helpful, you know, and it's really talks about like that whole idea, like you're watering this lawn because it looks nice, but like, you know, like you could totally grow food with that same water on that same land. And so I really like, you know, little ideas like that like people could incorporate and stuff. But
So what are you growing? What's your garden look like? What are you growing here?
So I have a variety of things right now. I have
Okay.
squash, kale, spinach. My spinach is small. My squash is taken over. Tomatoes, corn, um, peas, and I just some herbs and a little bit of eggplant.
Excellent.
So
Actually, like, so like four of those things you mentioned are like the best for survival if you had to like live without getting anything, like the squash, the spinach, the kale. The kale super resilient, the peas and the corn, like all excellent things to grow. If you know,
yeah, and they
should there
grow
be
really
in
well
like a
together.
apocalypse or yeah, yeah, they do. They grow well together for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, I've just like I told you, I've been a student of it. I've been trying to learn about it because it's something that like I feel like my mom, my parents do have kind of like green thumbs. My mom does, but like I feel like we haven't grown food. But my husband's father, like he lives on a in Colombia, like on a farm, and he turned his farm, which at one point was kind of like a very dry piece of land, into like this huge ecosystem of biodiverse food and fruit. And he had like coffee and bees and honey and just an amazing amount of trees over. It was really when he retired. He started when he retired, and over like 20 years made it into this amazing like forest, very biodiverse. And so what he also started to notice was that water started to come back to the land because of all the amazing plants and animals that were living there. Kind of like the water actually started to come back to the land, where he started having
Mm.
like a natural running stream. And it's just amazing how nature kind of works together and heals. And then outside of his land, everything else was like super dry because they had like a chicken farm across the way that would like suck up all the water. And so it was really an interesting dynamic to see how he transformed the land. And he used to say that he grew air. Like people are like, oh, so what do you grow? Because everybody's like so commodity based. And he's like, I grow air, or like, what do you sell? He's like, I make air. So yeah, I think that in trying to learn from, so like, people around us, our elders, our mentors, that have just kind of shaped ways. And so I feel like that's been kind of a big thing. So I'm glad. I think that a lot of people, I noticed it too, friends talking about like, yeah, I'm growing, and it's a challenge. It's hard. You got to maintain it.
Yeah. It's
But
very hard. It's very hard. I mean, I don't say it's very hard. I'd say it's very challenging. Definitely, it's something that you have to pay attention to. So, like mindfulness definitely comes into learning, right? Because there's certain steps that you have to do, certain things you need to check on daily. You have to create a routine around it, or else it will not be fruitful. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that, and it's also very meditative. It's also very healing to touch the earth and feel
Yes.
connected to it. So there's
Yeah,
that also, just like the healing properties of working the land. So yeah, that's been really, really big.
cool. So you mentioned also like how do you give hope to those that don't feel like they have hope, right? It's for me like I was like, well, like I'm like a very positive person, and like
Uh-huh.
so I couldn't say that I get depressed. That I can't remember a time I've ever been depressed. Right? I think I've been sad. That's normal, but like so to me, like I had a friend that's someone very dear to me who suffers from depression, and dealing with them, it's really opened my eyes, and it's really like it's really changed how I look at depression and people who feel when they tell me like, oh, I'm depressed, right? Like before, it's like, what do you mean? Just be happy. Look around and be happy, right? Um,
Wait,
so
hold on really quick. I have a
yeah,
baby
no
that
problem.
just crawled in. Give me a second.
No
Hold
problem.
on. Hold on. She knows where I am. I have to bring her. Yeah, you're working at home. This is the realities of working at home, and having kids. So,
Oh,
okay, so
good.
hope, yes, definitely, and mental health. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
with
So I was
mental
saying
health,
like before, like I've always been a positive person. So like when someone tells me they're depressed, I'm just like, well, just be happy. But like I said, I have a friend who suffers from depression, and just seeing like I've had to deal, like, it's funny how you don't really understand a thing until you actually have to deal with it. Like then like that experience will then change your opinion and how you view it and deal with it from that point on. Right? So I understand that there's nothing I can really say that's gonna make her feel great tomorrow. Like me, like that would be me, right? I would be great. Like, just takes compliments or like a good conversation, and then I'm recharged and I'm going again. Like, but like for her, it's not the same, right? So yeah. So tell me how you dealt with that or view that, and how you go about bringing hope to those that feel hopeless.
I mean, I feel like it's kind of intangible in the way that it's like ripples, like you just don't know how it's going to affect somebody else when you try and put it out there. So, like, maybe your friend might not smile right away or like wake up tomorrow and feel better, but that little seed that you planted starts to bury into new stories of how she can frame the world. And so I think that that is really, really powerful. And so I don't see necessarily like a one-to-one connection. Like if I paint a mural and I bring people into workshops, all of a sudden they're going to like feel immensely better. I don't really think that that's true. I think it's more like you plant seeds and you allow people to experience moments of connection and healing, or allow people to kind of just like share some happiness. It just starts to seed a little bit more positivity into their life, to see other potentials. So for me, I just feel like it's about putting it out there, and also like shifting new stories. I think it's really, really important. I've been really thinking about stories a lot. I actually was put onto this book as well recently about like, it's called Healing the Mind Through Stories. And what I really love about it is that like, it is about the stories that we tell ourselves. It's about the stories that we pass down. And so, kind of reframing what is potential. I feel like a lot of the sci-fi we grew up with, like, took us to this time. It's like the world comes to an end, the apocalypse happens or whatever, like the virus gets out there, and then, and like we're, now we're living like past that. So like, it's really important for people that are dreamers and people that are artists and people that are creative in any facet, for everybody to rethink about and reshape what's important. And I think that some things have really come to light with folks that like, we're seeing these new priorities as essential. Like we're seeing that everybody does need housing. That's essential, and that should be a priority moving forward. We're seeing that we all need access to food and some basic standards of like living and health and money and stuff. And so that should be a standard moving forward. So I think that in thinking of like reshaping the future and hope and stuff like that, we keep planting those seeds by telling those stories. Like it, like I feel like that's a big thing for artists. It's like we can dream big and out the box, but that can one day become culture. That one day could become the narrative. And the more that we make it understood that it's possible, that then it can kind of transform and shift minds. Because I think one thing I was really lucky about was when I lived in Ecuador, the president was Correa, and within one presidency, he completely transformed so much in the country. He nationalized oil. So like by taking oil and saying this is not a private industry, it is from the earth, it's for all of us to share, so we as a nation should profit off it. And he used that money to build infrastructure, to build roads, to fund public education, so education became free. The private schools started shutting because everybody started going to these amazing public schools who could pay great teachers. And so then like, why pay for a private school when I could just go to a public school? It's going to be just as good, if not better, And so then you started to see these like major shifts happen in real life. Also things like not having homelessness. Like there aren't really very many people living on the street. Like, yeah, there's poverty and equity, but you don't see homelessness like I see in LA, in one of the richest cities in the world. And so to actually see other countries that have made those shifts, and that it is attainable, like healthcare for all. Like as a foreigner, I could be there and get free healthcare, like just amazing programs that are real, that work, that are happening in countries around the world, that for us in our narrative here, it's like, that's crazy. That seems impossible. We can never afford it. But other countries
Right.
can, so we can too. And so I think that
Especially it's supposed to be the
it.
best, the greatest, and the greatest country in the world, right? If someone else in another country can do it successfully, then why can't we?
Yeah, I think that is also a really interesting thing, like how, we say like we're the best and we're the greatest. I was talking to a friend of mine in Amsterdam who was saying like they can't market things as the best or the greatest. It's illegal. So you can't say like, I make the best sushi, I make the best ramen or whatever. You can't say that because it's subjective. Like, is yours really better than mine? Is yours really better than theirs? So even that has trickled down to like how people talk to each other. Like, you don't say like, oh, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, or like mine is amazing. You don't put other things out in the same way because like culturally it's very different. So I think that that's interesting because in the US everything is the best, the greatest, the biggest, most amazing, which we know isn't true. And if you say it, does that make it true? No,
right. Maybe that's why I always have so many favorites, because everything's marketed as the best. Right? So everything's the best. And like, how can I choose just one? Like, yes.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I think back to your friend and healing and stuff, I really think of it as dropping ripples, like just making a little ripple in the water. Like, you just don't know how it's going to come back. And what I really liked about that book, and it's just something that I'm trying to understand more as well, is like a storyteller is like community heals, more so than medicine, more so than, not conventional medicine, because medicine is important. Don't let me get that wrong. There's amazing things to happen, but there is amazing, powerful benefits of community and people just being around and you just talking to your friend versus like being like, oh, you're depressed, you should go on medication. Like, that might not be the solution. The solution might be to be around more positive people that help reframe stories and help give her other ideas of what is possible. And I know, for people like that are close to me that also deal with like mental health, depression and stuff like that, the only thing sometimes you can do is that, like, I'm just going to be the consistent person in your life that's going to show up and tell you like, I don't agree, but I'm still here for you. Or like, maybe that's not true, but I will still listen to you. Or like you could see it in another light and I'm still here and I'll listen to, your sad story over and over, or whatever. I think it's just more that like being there and being consistent, it's really powerful. And sometimes we might not ever understand or see how it shifts somebody, but even the fact that they're still around could be what it's doing.
Oh no, definitely. I like what you said about like community skilling. I was at a UN conference with it was like indigenous women healers, and we were having a conversation about mental health, and one of the things that my organization, Ed Foundation, deals with is the trauma due to intergenerational trauma due to the effects of forced migration, or what some people call slavery, right? And so our community suffered from that without even knowing it. And we were talking to another indigenous group, and they were, and man, it sucks. I can't remember exactly where they were from, but they were an indigenous tribe, and they were saying how the local government brought them in to help people in the hospitals with their mental health issues, because they didn't really have cases of mental health in that community because of their sense of community. And so they were brought in by the government to help, show how their sense of interconnectedness helped heal the mental issues that people were having. And I think that's something, when you say community, I think interconnectedness interconnectedness is something that people tend to not realize is a strength, right? Like, we tend to view ourselves as isolated and alone, and what I do doesn't matter. And instead of I'm a part, it's a we, right? I'm a part of the all, and all is a part of me. And so like, what I do affects you, what you do affects me. And so I'm never alone, right? I can always reach out to someone. There's always someone here. And how I feel, I mean, we've all been there, like, right? You can just tell someone's feeling bad and they don't even have to say anything. So obviously those vibrations are strong and they're emanating off that person. You just have to be able to pick up on it. And the reverse is true too. You can feel someone's feeling good, you know? And so if you tap into that, then it can help you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really big, you know. That reminds me of like this exercise. I did this workshop. I was a part of it, where we had dinner and we couldn't talk, but everybody was still communicating. It was like the most interesting thing. Like, no one was allowed to say words, which was it was with a bunch of artists, which just became really fun and totally crazy because everybody was communicating all these other interesting ways. But you really start to see how much you communicate without the words that you speak, you know? And so I think that it's true, like we can pick up on that, and just being open to looking for those signs, I think is really important, you know? But yeah, I mean, I try and practice the healing through story all the time and try and evolve what these stories can be. And so that's why, like I was saying, like I've been trying to just really study right now, and think about what this next chapter is going to look like. I'm about to launch a new project on climate change. And so I have the basic framing for it, but it's not all put together yet. And so what I'm really, I set it up intentionally for this time to be about research and kind of discovery, because I knew that I needed to learn so much more to be able to do it justice. And so I feel like even with this COVID time, it just put that into a whole nother level of evolving. So yeah, I definitely feel like a big takeaway that I'm trying to do right now is just learn.
Awesome, awesome. So I do want to talk to you after I end this recall. So
oh wait, can I make a correction?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Okay, I said Leon was from Philly. He's from Pittsburgh. Sorry.
Okay. No, I went to the University of Pittsburgh. So no, I'm just gonna stop recording, but I still want to talk to you. But I want to like give you the outro like properly. Like, thank you for joining Afronauts, Erin. It was awesome speaking to you. And you said you have an upcoming project, and we can find out more. Where can we find out more about that project?
You can find me on social media at Erin Yoshi, or on my website, erinyoshi.com.
Okay. And again, Erin Yoshi joining Afronauts. I just want to thank you so much for joining us. It was awesome talking to you again. And
thank you for having me.